solving for a variable inside parentheses in terms of other variables. Solve for x. So I have this formula here, or this equation, and I have two different variables. And right now it's solved for z. It's in z equals form. They want me to rearrange this equation so that it is in x equals form, or the x is by itself. So right now, my x is inside the parentheses. I have this x plus 2, okay? And I need to peel away with that to get the x by itself. So I have two things happening here. I have a plus 2, and then right here on the outside of those parentheses, I have a times 10. There's multiplication right there. So I need to, like when we're solving equations, or if you think of order of operations, we would do parentheses first, inside the parentheses, and then the multiplication. But because we're undoing these operations, or solving, we're going to reverse that order. We're actually going to undo the multiplication first, and then work inside the parentheses. So right here, I have a times by 10. To undo that, or the opposite of that, would be to divide by 10. And I have z divided by 10 on the other side. The 10's cancel, and I'm left with z divided by 10 on the left equals, and then I have just my parentheses here, x plus 2 on the right. But since all I have left is just that, nothing else over here, I can drop those parentheses now and go to just x plus 2. Well, I'm still trying to get the x by itself. So now I need to get rid of that plus 2. Well, the opposite of adding 2 is subtracting 2, and I need to do that from both sides. Okay, so subtract 2 or add a negative 2. So these are going to zero out, and that leaves me with just my x over here. But on this side, do I subtract 2 from the z, from the 10, from the whole thing? You can think of it like this. The z divided by 10 was there first, right? And it was only the z divided by 10. It didn't have anything to do with this subtract 2. So we can just leave it like that. Z divided by 10 was there first, and then I subtracted 2. And I can leave my final answer just like that. I'm going to solve it one more way now. Okay? So if I start with this again, now this is a different method for solving it, and I have 10 times parentheses x plus 2. I could simplify this first. Well, and distribute my 10 over. So then I would have z equals 10x. 10 times x is 10x. 10 times 2 is plus 20. And then I could just rearrange this. Okay? So to get the x by itself, I'm going to have to get rid of this plus 20 and that times by 10. Well, before I get rid of the coefficient that's attached directly to the x, I want to get rid of this plus 20 first, anything else. So I'm going to subtract 20 and subtract 20 from both sides. Those zero out. I made a 0. And I have 10x on the right. And then these are not like terms. This is a constant term, no variables, and that one is a z. So I can't combine them. I have to just leave them as is, two different terms, z minus 20. And then to get my x by itself, I'm going to divide by 10. Now, this time, I have to divide the entire thing, z minus 20, by 10, because the z minus 20 was already there first. So when I divide on this side, I have to divide everything that's over there by 10. So now that leaves me with x equals z minus 20 divided by 10. And you may say, well, how come when we solved it two different ways we got two different answers? We should get the same thing. Well, these two really are the same thing. Because if I simplify this a little bit, and kind of pull this fraction apart. So I have z divided by 10, and then I'm subtracting 20 divided by 10. So instead of making one big fraction with one denominator, I took the two terms that were upstairs and just divided them separately by 10. I can do that. And then I simplified this one, 20 divided by 10. Then I get the z divided by 10 minus 20 divided by 10 is 2. And I get exactly the same thing as I did over there, equal to x. So it doesn't matter which way you want to solve it. This one is a little quicker, less steps, but I know whenever we see parentheses, our temptation is to just distribute right away. So if you do that, you can still solve it, and you should come out with the answer. You can write your answer like this, in this form, or in this form. They're both exactly the same, and either form is fine.